Welcome to Yumi and All Things She. Our podcast is about all aspects of being a woman, from motherhood to careers, romantic relationships to family relationships and dynamics, and everything in between. It's a chance to learn, explore, and feel what's genuine and imagined as a woman in this world, along with multi-generational conversations that will stimulate your soul. So sit back, laugh, smile, and even cry a little along with us as we begin our journey together. You, me, and all things she. Holy cow. I can't believe it's been a whole week since we've been together, but I have got an exciting show for you today that I cannot wait to get started. So Deb here, I am so excited that you've joined me on this episode of You, Me, and All Things She. Today we're going to talk about being an empowered woman and how by being an empowered woman, what that does is creates change among the world. It's not only our own small, little, simple world, it can be the huge, big world as a whole. I'm still, as you can tell, suffering from what I call my sexy voice, my Barry White voice. So thank you so much for joining me and entertaining me and being part of this journey of You, Me, and All Things She. So let's really start to uncover this and peel back the layers of the idea of empowered. Empowerment, as a definition, is the authority or power that's given to someone to do something. And I just like to think about that for a moment, the authority and power given. So there's obviously, if there's a giver, there's got to be a receiver. That would be us as the receiver, I'd hope. But then to do something, whether it's think differently, act differently, be differently in this world that we live in, that's amazing to think about empowerment. Also, it went on to say that it's the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life, and then claiming one's rights. So think about that. We sometimes, when we're in that place of poor me, or I'm the victim, and I can't believe this is happening to me, which, you know, in this journey, we have this grief loss process so many times, and we get through that process, but we start with this, feeling sorry for ourselves or feeling bad. And then what we have to do through that recovery process from that grief is move beyond that. And then hopefully through it all comes this moment of empowerment that really makes a shift in who we are on the inside so we can now become someone better on the outside. What brought this topic up for me and made it so meaningful is I was recently doing and attending some volunteer training, some training for a volunteer organization that requires, in order to serve in some capacities, you have to be certified through the state that I live in. And, I was doing that process, and one of the opening sessions asked what we felt empowerment was. Actually, I was just talking to someone earlier today, and they asked me the same question. What is empowerment to you? So I love to sit back and reflect on that and truly think about, well, what does that mean to me? It means I have strength. And even when I'm at a weak moment, once that tide shifts and moves into this moment of empowerment, it is absolutely amazing when we have that control back, when we have that knowledge and experience back, then what we can do to really impact not only our world, but those of us around us, to empower them to do the same, to have the hope in those moments, to know that empowerment is coming if we take certain steps. And so that was why, for me, it was really important that we talk about empowerment. It made me search and really dig a little bit deeper so that I could identify for myself, what does empowered mean to me? And now, of course, we have to think about, well, why don't we? Why don't we always feel empowered? Why, as women, we don't share that empowerment with others so more often than all of the rest of the stuff? Well, the first thing is that, life is this, I call it a roller coaster, but ultimately it is a process. We couldn't be at maximum empowerment forever, but we also couldn't be at the bottom of the barrel down in the dumps all the time either. We have to have this, we're always striving, and most of us are striving for this thing called balance. Well, we're going to have the downs and we're going to have the ups, and hopefully we have more ups than downs through the process in this journey called life. And ultimately, when we're down, if we can glean some method of what can we learn from that situation to either one, do it differently in the future, or help someone else do it differently in the future. If it's kind of a one-time shot for us, then maybe we can really have an impact in a positive way and change the world one relationship, one contact, one person at a time, if not many at a time, which was really a lot of what drove me to even start this podcast to begin with. So I'm so glad that you've come along on the journey with me. And let's talk about the reasons why that doesn't happen. Well, the first one we're going to talk about, of course, is societal expectations. There has been this documented history of society is that, women are meant to conform. Women, although we're now part of the working world, and that seems to be much more standard than ever, we're still the one that kind of keeps the household together in most families. We are the ones oftentimes that are taking care of our elderly family members or even taking care of siblings, if that's the case along the way or part of our journey. So we're looked at as that caregiver, that compassionate one, the one that's expected to do things a little bit different in the world than maybe a male role model might be. And so what we can do is take those expectations, those societal expectations, and live them to their fullest. I'm meant to kind of keep my family together, and I'm going to do it with excellence because I'm empowered to do so through the choices and opportunities that I've been given. And so we can kind of break through those fears. One quick story that it's probably been 20 years ago, but my heart believes that it's probably not changed to be much different now. But we were living in North Carolina. The heart of the Deep South is what I think of. But I was calling the utilities. We're in this process of finishing up all the transitions of relocating and getting the family established. And so I was calling the utility company, and they asked if they could speak to the man of the house. And I said, well, he's not here. He's working. I'm just trying to do what I need to do in order to get things moving forward. And they said, well, unfortunately, we're going to have to speak to the head of the household, the man, in order to begin to move things forward. So that, from a societal standpoint, I couldn't believe it. Even 20 years ago, I was like, wow, really? Now, I live in what I call the South of the South, the really, really far south part of the United States now. But this seemed to be very normal. And when, I shared it with my husband and he shared it with maybe some friends at work, I remember, them saying, well, that is just the way it is here. And so that's the societal norm of that part of the country. And just their expectation of the roles of men and women. Women don't call and ask about utilities. We're not that empowered to do that. It's the man's role. And so it was interesting to go through that process, even, quite some time ago, and go, really? We're still so far back in the time frames that I, as a woman, can't call and just make sure everything's ready for my house. No, I'm supposed to be the one setting up, cleaning, getting everything else in order, but I can't necessarily talk to someone that I'm going to owe a debt or an obligation to in order to get things straightened up. So just a little interesting I was thinking about this empowerment and how that societal expectations I faced them personally. But the other thing, of course, what we deal with is discrimination. And I'm not big to say, women are all powerful and, women are dominant and anything like that. I am not that person. But I do believe that there are some societal discriminations or beliefs that, men do this and women do this. Women face discriminations in all aspects of life. And, I've seen that firsthand in my professional life because I have tend to be in areas that are more male-dominated professions. I was actually in training and development profession at one part of my career. Okay, that's not so big, but it was in the window industry, and I was teaching men about Florida building codes. So that's where things kind of got shifted and a little bit wonky. I remember one gentleman said to me, well, so are you the one that cleans the windows? And I go, oh gosh, no, I'm your instructor for today. And they were like, oh, I'm so sorry. So it was just one of those, again, those societal norms, but that personal discrimination that came out. And luckily it was before the class started. And, I said, well, I can even get out there in the field with you if you'd like, and, help with installation if you'd like me to. So I kind of took that just for myself, that empowerment that I felt by being the instructor. to the next level by saying, I can help you even with more manly things than just your learning about energy efficiency or Florida building codes or whatever it needed to be. So it was just interesting to kind of feel that even in that environment that, the expectation was that I was there to do something other than be the educator for them regarding those products. So we can feel empowered and we can take that control back. We can use that, what someone may seem as undervalued, and allow us to feel powerless. And then by becoming that empowered person, we can shift that energy. And I ran into that more than one time, over and over again when I was doing that professionally, because there's just this understanding that you're coming in to take classes, and there were not very many of us that were women trainers. And if we were, we didn't have necessarily, many of them didn't have the ability to articulate to them or connect with them in a way that they felt valuable. So, it was one thing that I worked really hard to do, was kind of bridge that gap in those building relationships, to show them that, I'm no different than you just because I'm a woman versus a male, but yet I deserve the same respect. And, I saw those tides turn in almost every class by the majority of the students that were in attendance, because we did actually work very heavily with men in their professions for that particular industry. But also one thing I think that we may find as what removes that empowered feeling from us is the lack of resources. Women sometimes we lack the resources to really get that empowered feeling, such as maybe we don't have the freedom and time and availability to go get an education in a particular field. Even there was one time I was in that same career. When I was doing training and development, I was also part of the safety committee for that particular company. And so what I was doing is I was going to continuing education for paramedics. And so I was getting into a healthcare position, again, another field that was heavily dominated by the male gender. And, now I'm in that, taking those education, I'm speaking the language, I'm helping people from a health standpoint in a whole different way. But sometimes that's a limitation for us to feel that empowered feeling, is we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to go make that happen for ourselves. And so those lack of resources, sometimes being difficult for us, can squash our goals. It may make us rethink our goals and realign them to be something completely different and maybe not fulfilling what we're totally called to be our fullest and live our fullest life. So the next thing that comes along, and this is all within each one of us, is this whole concept and idea of self-doubt. And when women, often we doubt ourselves and our abilities, then what that does is that portrays that out to the world. And now their confidence in us begins to start to waver because we don't have it inside. So what we need to do in order to shift that outward energy and outward feeling that others are getting from us, kind of that outward vibe, is that we need to get that empowered feeling back in. What does that mean? Do I need to read a little bit more about the topic in order to feel more confident and empowered to speak about it? Do I need to, spend some time watching maybe some YouTube videos or doing something else or reaching out to someone else that just might be there to help me build my dreams, my future, my goals, to really give me the empowerment and that feeling to take that control back? So we might need to kind of think outside the box in order to get some of that back as a woman, in order to begin to build the life that we've always dreamed of. And the last, kind of robber of our empowerment might be the trauma. If we've dealt with trauma, and it's not even trauma, say, from abuse, which can be huge, but it might just be trauma from things like a sexual assault, something that happened in our childhood. It might be parenthood trauma, not feeling loved as a child or supported as a child. And then we get into that cycle of second guessing ourselves or wondering whether or not we're even powerful enough to do that or have the ability to do it. And then that trauma, as we go through that cycle of valuing ourselves and trying to figure out where that trauma fits so that we can work through it and get to the other side of it in a successful way. We don't want it to necessarily damage our self-worth long term. We need to use it, but we also need to feel safe moving forward so that we can feel that empowered feeling rather than powerless. And so we can't stay in that victim mode. That is not the way to get through it. We need to acknowledge it, absorb it, feel it, and then move beyond it in order to gain that empowered feeling back. So here's some ways that we can take that empowerment back and to create the life that we all desire. And mine's different than what you're desiring. The first thing we can do, I mentioned a little while ago, is, become educated. Education is one of the most powerful tools for women's empowerment. It gives us the knowledge and the skills to stand up and succeed in life. And then depending upon what we were wanting to gain that knowledge in, as far as maybe a curriculum or a certain area of specialty, then we can not only speak well about that topic, we can then critically think through that process because we've become educated in it. And so education also helps us to understand our rights and then to advocate not only for others but for ourselves that may be going through that same process. Again, I was talking to someone earlier today and we were talking about how many times, that education process is one step moving forward, but then also connection maybe with others might be the next step that really goes, they've been through it too. And so by connecting with others, they can empower us to now take that control, do what we need to do, and become our best self. So employment is another opportunity. Maybe if you have always been, say, a stay-at-home mom, I can honestly say that I tried it. It wasn't for me. The beauty of my family dynamic and the relationship that my husband and I had is that there were times when, he was able to stay home with the kids, and there were times when I was able to stay home with the kids, but I wasn't meant to be a full-time stay-at-home mom. It just wasn't in my genes. I needed other interaction. It's not that I didn't love my children. It's not that I didn't want to be a great mom because I do in every stretch of the imagination. I just wasn't meant to stay inside kind of the confines of my home and do that very young child learning time. I needed adult interaction, and that's one of the things that just makes me who I am. So we can find those things if we needed that in employment to as a release to empower ourselves in order to develop our skills, develop our talents. If you've always had a desire to do something, I probably will say I am not the most creative person around, but I know I have a good friend that is just the most creative of all, and she takes kind of her hobby and desire to be creative and has turned that into her side hustle from her main full-time job in order to create. She's got this, great little business that creates pillows and bibs for children and coffee mugs and all these great gifts. But what it does for her is it gives her the empowerment and release for her own creativity that just continues to stir her soul and give her the opportunity to create the best life that she wants for herself. So kudos to her for being that excellent woman that she is in order to see where her strengths are and where her passions and desires are, and then wrap that into her everyday life in order to share that with others. So I admire her every time I see an update of some new things that she's doing for whatever the occasion is or the holiday upcoming. It puts a smile on my face because I'm like, that's truly an empowered woman, a woman that knows where she is, what she's got to offer, and then does it and loves every moment of it. So the next aspect that we can look to help build our empowerment is leadership. And believe it or not, if you're a mom, if you're a wife, if you're running a household, even if you're the only one running the household, if you're keeping and maintaining a home or a job, you are already a natural born leader. And so sometimes what we have to do is just step into that role of leadership and change the way the world views us and allow it to inspire us to take it to the next level. So leadership for women can help us develop our confidence and become more assertive, whether you want to volunteer in an organization like I've done, something I'm passionate about, and or find something that you can just give your time back to. Maybe it's something that you want to learn more about. To be something, say, like I had a good friend of mine that, while her daughter was growing up, she was actually a Girl Scout leader and did that every She did it on Sundays. And so she took one of her days off from her full-time job in order to fulfill that. But that was her way of contributing back, to giving back, something that inspired her. You may want to volunteer. You may have small groups at your church or some women's networking groups, or even fundraising could create that passion for you possibly that you're not finding maybe in every day-to-day life that helps to empower that sense of value for yourself. And then, of course, we can always develop stronger relationships. And in relationships, I mean strong and supportive relationships, whether it's, woman to woman, part of those groups that you want to be part of, or stretch out to become friends with someone that's doing what you want to learn how to do or begin to do. But relationships for us as women, they can provide love in a very neutral, kind, gentle way. They can provide support and encouragement. And most of all, what that does is that really develops that empowered feeling that we can share with one another. And when you're empowered, guess what? You do rub off on those around you. And so we get to share in that empowered feeling, that thriving feeling, and that just does nothing but continue to elevate and level up everyone that's around you. So it's just an amazing feeling. And to observe and watch that from an outside perspective, it is just phenomenal. Because sometimes what we're connecting with like-minded friends, like-minded family, it just gives us that empowered feeling or empowering feeling that, I'm not alone. I can wrap myself around some pretty powerful women, some powerful friends, some powerful family members even, in order to achieve the things that you want to achieve. And of course, we have to always talk about self-care, because I was just talking to someone the other day and they were like, I just don't know. And I go, well, if you don't take care of yourself first with whatever it is you're doing, there's no way that you can take care of anyone else around you. So whether that's taking care of your spirituality, whether it's taking care of your physical body, your mental, your emotional, all of those different aspects of feeling empowered come together and require us to self-care first. We've got to make sure that we're doing our best to eat healthy foods. And I know, I'm just like everybody else. It was a hot summer. There were lots of times and opportunities for ice cream and all sorts of other stuff. But you know what? There's a time and a place, and it's time to make a change. For me, anyway. And getting to regular exercise, I know when I was actively running consistently, gosh, I felt so much better. I felt so empowered as a woman to get out there and make it happen for myself. And then making sure that you get enough sleep. Through this sickness, I've been, my nights and rest is up and down. Also, something that helps me sleep at night, I had to actually go without for almost a week's sleep. And so I just got that new piece of equipment in that's going to help me sleep a little bit better. Didn't happen last night, but I am counting on kind of getting back into that sync and that rhythm, that habit of sleeping with all of that equipment that helps me sleep a little bit better. So with that, I just want to know from you, what are you doing? What do you focus on? What can you create for yourself to become that empowered woman that's going to do nothing more than change your world? Not change mine, it's going to change your world and all of those women around you's world, one smile at a time, one hug at a time, one high five at a time. And so it's just going to kind of build that bound around you and that bind you all together. And again, I was talking to someone earlier today, and we were like, we need to stick together. We've got to have each other's back. I said, absolutely. So go ahead, let me know in the comments below what's on your mind, what you're thinking about, what you'd like to talk about. So what I've done for a few links in the comments below is you'll find there's a couple things. First of all, if there's anything I can help with that you can find on Amazon, I've put a link in there. So that will just do nothing more. I'll receive a small commission from your purchase of whatever it is you'd like to purchase on Amazon, but that will help keep the podcast going for one. So be sure to stay tuned in. A couple of other things that I have in the comments for you. I found a couple of books that I thought you might really be interested. The Empowerment Paradox, high ratings, good stars by Ben Woodward. The link is there. Also, Women Thrive, and inspiring true stories for women that are overcoming adversity. If you like those true stories, that's truly what sings to me, is when I'm hearing and listening and watching a true story of someone. And then also maybe it's time to treat yourself to a little surprise. And you can do that by empowering self-care questions, 52 stress relief cards for meditation, mindfulness, and yoga. So just look at the links below, see if there's something that resonates with you that you can help create that fulfilled and empowered feeling. And in the meantime, be sure to share, like, and subscribe so that you never miss an episode. We've got so much to talk about, and I can't wait for you to tell me what you'd like to talk about in the comments so we can put it on an upcoming show. Also, if you're interested in being part of the show, put that in the comments as well. I'd love to reach out to you. I'd like to share your story. We can dig into what aspects of that are really relevant, and then we can build that whole entire episode around you and what you want to share with the world. So please reach out to me, put it in the comments, and I look forward to connecting with you very soon. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Until next time, we'll see you soon.